1988 was kind of a big year for Christmas movies. Scrooged, Ernest Saves Christmas, Pee-wee's Christmas Special, but Die Hard has something those other movies don't have. A bunch of video game adaptations. If you've never seen Die Hard, I'll summarize. Pre-bald Bruce Willis visits his wife at work and takes his shoes off. Severus Snape comes in and takes everyone hostage, so
New York cop John McClane
has to sneak around killing Germans and save his wife. Reginald VelJohnson plays a cop here who was traumatized about the time he shot a kid. The following year he'd play another cop in Family Matters, or is it the same character? Carl is just Al with 2 additional letters, plus the next person he shot after the kid's name was Carl. What if his PSTD manifested itself in Steve Urkel? That certainly explains all the supernatural events that only happened to those 2 characters. It was all in his head the whole time. Oh, but this theory, a film theory, goes even deeper than that. This goes all the way back to Ghostbusters, where he was, again, a cop. But this video is about Die Hard, not the many badges of Reginald VelJohnson. So let's play some games. Games based on the first movie were made for the NES, MS-DOS, and Commodore 64, and I'm sure you're already kind of familiar with the NES version. You have to kill 30 bad guys before the vault opens, and it follows the movie surprisingly well for an NES game. By no means does that make it a good game. This shit is hard. Die hard. As in so hard, you will die. A lot. The enemies constantly spray bullets, and the controls make it almost impossible to shoot them without getting hit. The DOS version is pretty similar, except it's in third person instead of a top-down view. The controls in this version are even worse. It's like playing Bubsy 3D on a keyboard with one hand. Die Hard 2 is an on-rail shooter that was released on PC and some other early 90s non-Nintendo or Sega consoles. You're in Dulles Airport shooting bad guys and collecting power-ups. It's extremely basic, but this was PC gaming in 1992. Die Hard Arcade came out a year after what probably should have been the final Die Hard movie. It's a 3D beat-em-up that used QuickTime events before literally every game used them. In Die Hard Arcade, you play as, John McClane or Chris Thompson, and your mission is to save the president's kidnapped daughter. Now, what this has to do with the movie or burning Nakatomi Plaza on the cover art is beyond me. I assume a Fox Interactive employee played the original in Japan and realized how awesome it is, but didn't think Americans would be accepting of its original title Dynamite Detective, which honestly sounds just as much like an 80s movie title as Die Hard. The game was ported to the Saturn, and the sequel/remake Dynamite Cop was released on a Dreamcast. For its time, Die Hard Arcade was fantastic. It was like Final Fight on steroids. You had different melee attacks, you could pick up all kinds of weapons, and you could make enemies sneeze by throwing pepper in their face. Dynamite Cop just took all that and made it better. This is definitely the best Die Hard game. Besides the next one. Die Hard Trilogy for the PlayStation is a masterpiece of insanity. There's actually 3 games on the disc, 1 for each movie. The first one takes you up each floor of Nakatomi Plaza while you kill enemies, free hostages, and defuse bombs. You have a pistol with unlimited ammo, but you can pick up other weapons like a machine gun, which prompts a Bruce Willis sound-alike to say,
I've got a machine gun!
Which is just like in the movie, right?
I've got a machine gun!
Remember that one time John McClane said,
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
"You will after playing this game."
Yippee-ki-yay! Yippee-ki-yay! Yippee-ki-yay!
Of course they cut out the bad word though, because the children playing this M-rated game shouldn't be subjected to such debauchery. The best part though, this screaming never ends. I can't even tell who's screaming. Die Hard 2 is an on-rail shooter and deja vu. It's a pretty good one. I imagine it would be a lot of fun with a light gun, but I'm stuck using a controller, which actually isn't as bad as it sounds. The goal here is to shoot everybody in the Dulles Airport. Die Hard 33 1/3 has you drive around New York where bombs are set to explode. You can change cars, but don't bother. You have to drive through this narrow gate to get to one, but you only have about 4 seconds to find the bomb before it explodes. This part reminds me of Superman 64, where you have to stop a car from hitting a pedestrian, but you don't even have enough time to realize what you're supposed to do before it's too late. It's kinda like Crazy Taxi, but not good, the time limit is too short, and the bitchin' tunes are replaced with sounds of vehicular manslaughter. There is a second Die Hard trilogy on PS1, but it's not based on any of the movies, and it came out several years before the next entry in the series. It's basically a copy of the first game, but much worse. If I had to describe the controls of the first game in one word, it would be loose. With but fun in parentheses. Trilogy 2 tightens the controls but takes all the fun out of it. I honestly couldn't tell you what this game is about. John McClane is invited to Las Vegas and gets wrapped up in a prison break. You kill all the prisoners and then I didn't know how to proceed. You don't have to play through the entire game to get to the shooting and driving sections, but I don't recommend skipping straight to them. I don't mean play through the entire game, I mean just don't play it at all. Die Hard Nakatomi Plaza is a PC game that came out in 2002. For some reason, a big thing in the early to mid 2000s was releasing games based on movies from the 80s. The Warriors, Scarface, and Evil Dead all had games for the PlayStation 2. Most movie-based games released in this time were very loosely based on their respective films, but Nakatomi Plaza was different. It's an FPS that plays like an interactive version of the movie. While it does add a few things, most of the cutscenes and missions were faithfully adapted from the movie. Just watch this part where John McClane first arrives.
Hey, good evening. I'm here to see. Just type it in there.
It looks like Windows 10 doesn't play well with older games. The most recent console game, Die Hard Vendetta, was a GameCube exclusive. at least in the US. It's another FPS, takes place 5 years after the third movie, and again features Reginald Val Johnson as Al Powell. He's in a lot of these games, did he really not have anything else going on? Anyway, the plot uses the super original trope of the hero's child getting kidnapped by the child of their nemesis. Vendetta does try to change up the FPS formula a little bit by adding hostage situations with varying outcomes.
Oh, that really chafes.
You okay?
Well, I am now, sweetie.
But the game overall feels very rocky. The GameCube controller, while amazing for most things, isn't great for first-person shooters. That little nub just doesn't do it for me. If you want a more modern Die Hard game, go for it, but I recommend sticking with Trilogy. The final Die Hard game as of this recording was a mobile tie-in game to the worst Die Hard movie, A Good Day to Die Hard. The longer this series goes on, the more their movie titles turn into old Fall Out Boy songs. So Die Hard 5 is a mobile game from 2013, which means it's either Candy Crush, Flappy Bird, or Temple Run. As much as I would love to see Bruce Willis's head bobbing around little Nakatomi plazas, it's an endless runner. Your goal as Jack McClane is to run. Forever. And that's all the Die Hard games. Most of them are unsurprisingly bad except for Trilogy and Arcade. I would have liked to have played more of Nakatomi Plaza, but, you know. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and we'll see you next time.